All right, YouTube. You have the Poacher back from what we call the dressing room here with another video. So for the podcast. So going over now, the two finals are over. We had a chance to sleep on it. Going over, the Copa America recap. There was some, expectations were that did come true. Same time, some surprises and disappointments here. So let's jump right into it with the expectations. Right, everyone knew for Copa America in the U.S. This had, like, I guess you say, two phases to it. One, dress rehearsal for the U.S. stadiums to get ready for the World Cup. I think they struggled at times, to be honest with you, as the tournament got to its later stages. But that's not what this video is about. The teams that we expected to do well, for the most part, did well. Right? I feel like Argentina was the champion. We expected them to be a tough team that took out. No one took them out. Colombia heading towards the tournament, everyone thought that they could have a good run in them, which they did. They went to the final. And until the final came, I think they outplayed everybody, especially in the midfield. I would say for sure, like, James Rodriguez being the best player of the tournament was correct. I think he was the guy who made the difference for the Colombian national side. So I would say, for sure, like, they got that one right when it comes down to James Rodriguez. And I'm curious what's going to happen, if he's going to still stay in Brazil and play, or try to go back to Europe and make another go at it. So for sure, interesting to see in the future. Now, when it comes down to, I'm not gonna say like disappointments yet, but I'll say surprises, right? And I'll say like a good surprise and a weird surprise. Good surprise, I would say it's Canada, right? Canada, if you have not been watching CONCACAF soccer the last few years, Canada has been that team on the rise, right? They had some good key players that play in Europe. Alphonso Davies, for example, playing for Bayern, and they had the ability to win some key games, right? Like, you look at like their qualifications towards the last World Cup. They did beat the U.S. They did beat Mexico. They did play Mexico very well in the Azteca, and they just had that capability to. It's just more just putting it all together. I think the hire of Jesse Marsh was an excellent hire for Canada. I think you have someone that understands their identity and uses it towards the team goal. And I feel like Canada, for the most part, competed very well in this tournament. They knew it's simple. Like, they know they know who they are. They know what strengths that they have, and they use that, and they got results. And in the international game business, it's all about results, right? And I'll discuss that a little bit more when it comes down to, like, disappointments, right? The weird surprise, I think, for me personally, is it's not what's the best way I can describe it, but I think it's more on just how, like, Brazil just looked different. And it's kind of interesting because, like, I know some Brazilians, and just asking just curious questions. It's like, I know everybody thinks Brazil, you should expect, this jogo bonito type of style, and they looked nothing like that when it came down to this tournament. And it's interesting because, like, on one hand, you can say that you're missing Neymar. Neymar, easily their leader right now, still, like, influential leader, cultural leader. It's still Neymar, right? What if Neymar was there? Does Brazil make it to? Do they beat Uruguay, right, or do they go to the final? That's a very good question, right? Same time, like, you still have, like, the surprising of, I think Vinicius did not have a great tournament either. I think he had a subpar tournament. I think, compared to his like playing Real Madrid, definitely is not up to par on his end. So, and then, like I said, it's like Brazil just didn't look like themselves. And I'm kind of curious what happens to them moving forward as we go towards the World Cup. Does Neymar make that big of a difference for Brazil? Is that going to be the X factor? Or, do they have to make improvements at other places? So it'll be kind of interesting because, like, all these guys play in Europe, they're playing top clubs. So, like, it's kind of surprising to me. It's like, yes, they lost to Uruguay. Uruguay's a good team in the quarterfinal. But, like, I was just surprised, like, just the play of it, right? It just I don't know, just something about, like, like, the team did not play like a team a lot, and maybe a couple pieces are missing to make it work that way. So, kind of a weird surprise, like, not like happy surprise, but weird surprise, right? Disappointment of the tournament, man. I'm just gonna say straight up, U.S. men's national team. There's no other category that's even close to this, right? Like, I know my fellow Mexicano is going to say, yes, it's also Mexico not making out of the group. And granted, Mexico had a tougher group than the U.S. did. So I think Mexico right now is going through a weird transitional phase, and Venezuela has been playing well, and Ecuador has always been a team that's always been in the mix of these tournaments. So I'm not gonna say it's a huge disappointment. Like, yes, it's disappointing if you are an El Tri fan that the expectations are there, but like I think El Tri is going through a lot of change, and it's kind of interesting with like the Mexican news what they're going through, and I just don't like. For me, I feel like like I was surprised they got bounced in the first round, but not surprised at the same time. U.S. men's national team, that was a surprise. I feel like, and this is where I'm gonna go about my rant about the U.S. men's national team. They had the easier group. Like, they had the worst team in the tournament in their group, which is Bolivia, and barely beat them 2-0. And yes, you can say that they should have won 4 or 5-0, but you gotta do those things, right? And then against Panama was still missing some key guys, right? And they lose that game. And yes, you can say Tim Weah with the red card and everything. And this is where it goes back to the notion of like, I'm glad they finally made the decision to, separate themselves from Great Berhalter, right? I think in this type of tournament with this type of like competition, and you're not gonna get this competition again to the World Cup, it was vital that they got out of the group, right? Even if they would have lost the quarterfinal to Colombia, it was just vital, right? And you gotta look at it this way: like, the group of players you have, they all play in Europe, they all play top 5 leagues, they all have quality. I just think you have a coach that's horrible with tactics. Greg Berhalter only plays one formation all the time, never makes in-game adjustments, right? We saw that during the World Cup, how the Netherlands figured him out pretty quickly. Same time, too, players, they got to step up, man. And, this is, I think, the time of so much about, hey, the promise of these young players, the promise of this. Hey, man, it's put up or shut up. And I feel like, now, like, I hope that team understands that, like, you can't, nothing is guaranteed, and nothing is, gonna be, yes, yeah, you're playing against Panama, and, you're down 10 men, but at the same time, you have enough quality that you can beat them with 10 men, right? Colombia proved that against Uruguay in the semifinal, that like, as long as you have a good game plan, execute it, you can beat them with 10 men. Yes, will it be a little bit more difficult? Absolutely. But I think you have the quality to get you the W, right? And again, like, it comes down to the head coach. Greg Berhalter, I felt like made the players too comfortable at times. I feel like, in my opinion, just you need a coach that's more experienced, a coach that's been there, but done that, and Greg Berhalter's never been that. So I think it was a dumb decision to bring him back for a second term, and I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. Now I'm curious what the U.S. is going to do now when there comes down to the next coach, right? They need somebody who they can't pick. They need somebody who's been there. They need somebody that has proven to be a winner. They need somebody that has played in Europe, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a American coach we're talking about here. You need somebody with great experience. So I'm interested of what they're going to go with that. But for sure, yeah, like, U.S. biggest disappointment in this tournament by far. Overall, like I said, Copa America lived up to the hype. You had intensity affairs, intensity games. The right team, I felt like, won the tournament. I think everybody who does not live in Argentina